艺文中国由一汽大众奥迪品牌特约播出。
艺术改变当代中国的另一种力量，长期致力于推动全球艺术发展的百年品牌奥迪，活跃在艺术最前沿的资深策划人翁玲，与当代最具影响力的艺术精英，邀您共赏中国第一档高端跨界艺术文化访谈节目，聚焦2010年度艺文坐标奥迪艺术与设计大奖。艺文中国每周6晚8点15分，一汽大众奥迪品牌、天安时间当代艺术中心、旅游卫视联合出品。同80年代的中央美院与同代人一起成长，他是中国当代艺术的见证者。从外滩3号到前门23号，他是城市核心地带顶级艺术中心的创造者。从北京、上海到巴黎、纽约，他是在中国与世界间穿梭的文化旅行者。中国资深艺术策划人翁玲带您进入当代中国最前沿的艺术世界。
林英，玛雅琳，著名美籍华裔建筑师、艺术家、环保人士。1959年出生于美国俄亥俄州雅典城。自小对大自然的热爱成为他毕生事业和人文理想的原动力。追根溯源，林英出身于书香名门，建筑大师梁思成、林徽因夫妇是他的姑父和姑母。1980年，年仅21岁的耶鲁大学大3学生林英，传奇般地成为越战纪念碑的设计者。之后30年，林英以极其严谨的专业态度，同时在建筑与艺术2个领域进行探索。他的创作结合科学和艺术手段，形式独特而唯美，且极富于诗意。建筑作品包括民权纪念碑、妇女之桌、纽约非洲美术馆、美国华人博物馆等。同时，他还创作了大量的地景、装置、雕塑作品。林英多年来荣誉等身，他被美国生活杂志评为20世纪最重要的100位美国人和50位美国未来的领袖。2005年，林英入选全美妇女名人堂。2010年2月，美国总统奥巴马在白宫亲自为林英颁发2009年度美国国家艺术奖章。2009年起，林英陆续在北京、纽约、旧金山等地发表他的最后一座纪念碑作品《什么正在消逝》。
著名的华人建筑师、艺术家，林英女士 Maya Lin， 她的工作室就在SOHO的 Prince 和 Green 2条街交界的地方。上次来是来看设计的 Mocha。Mocha
Museum of Chinese America.
4, 3,
Yeah.
2， 开始，action。
玛雅，每次来纽约看你都很忙，然后上一次我来是专门为了你设计的摩卡来纽约的，然后你也没有参加那个很盛大的为了摩卡庆祝摩卡的这个。
Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. It's not comedy. Sorry, I'm sorry.
So how about
So we're cutting.
if I speak in English, but 要是Maya, so happy to see you again at your studio.
Really good to see you. Next time it'll probably be Beijing again.
Last time we met, actually, is at your studio. We also just will finish our project.
Right.
Working with you
At the Beijing Center for the Arts, yeah.
Yes. How you like the show?
I could be happier. I think one of the ideas when I started this, what I call the fifth and the last of the memorials, is to create a work that could jump form, that could be multi-sided, and that what we're really trying to do is wake people up about the present sixth extinction. So when we started talking, and the idea where I could launch the first of the permanent sculptures at California Academy of Sciences, a listening cone, but literally simultaneously launch
almost the same time,
almost to within 3 days.
Yeah.
The traveling exhibit, The Empty Room, where anyone could walk into a room, pick up an optical piece of plexi, and catch an animal in their hands, and in a way hold the animal's life in your hands, and then to be taught it was all just pure science, but to be able to almost turn science facts into what we would call a tone poem, something very minimal, very slow-paced, but would allow you to take away a certain amount of information and sound.
Yeah, sound is beautiful and the image is beautiful, and if you're going to missing them, that's so sad of what a human.
And again, we do tend to pollute what we don't see. So anything that is invisible to the naked eye, the human eye, we tend to forget about. So in Creative Time, again, who had sponsored the MTV billboard, the Rockefeller Foundation had sponsored, I think, 5 artists to ask a question, to travel and ask a question. So we were going on this trip anyway, and I started asking people everywhere I went, from Peru to Laos, Cambodia, what is missing, something you've personally remembered from nature, from the environment, that you remember, or maybe your parents or grandparents have told you that they saw or heard that is no longer there. We are building right now not only the awareness, telling you what is disappearing, but we are right now building by the end of this year on the website what you can do to help.
The first night we come to New York, we went to Times Square and we saw your piece, What is Missing, on the MTV.
Yeah. By this time next year, we're going to open up what I call the map of memory, so that we'll invite anyone to add one image and a little written description of what they personally have seen disappear. We're going to create online a global memorial built by all of us and any of us. Same day we opened up the MTV billboard, What is Missing, we also went live with our website. So you can go on right now, click on a dot, the sounds will come up, and up will pop one of the videos.
So you call your What is Missing is the last memorial work?
It's the 5th and the last, though it'll take me my lifetime.
Of course, we will follow your What is Missing all the time, and we would love to help you in any way we could.
Thank you.
And so when you were 21 years old, you designed and you win the Vietnam Memorial.
Right.
Yeah, could you talk about
that? It's the first work I ever did. It's in Washington, D.C. on the mall. I entered a competition when I was still a senior at Yale, and I entered it because I believed in what I was trying to say. And what I was trying to say was there's a very sad fact about war, and it is a very high price to pay, which is the lives that are lost. And we can never forget it. If you think about it, a lot of memorials are about the politics. For the United States, the Vietnam War, the politics almost eclipsed the service of the veterans, and people came back from that war. A lot of them never chose to fight, they were drafted, and they were spat upon. So they were caught in the middle. They were very young, and so I deliberately tried to make a statement here where I basically said, can we honor the people that served? Can we honor the lives?
The Vietnam Memorial work make you famous, also that you had hard time.
I think there were 3 reasons why it was extremely controversial. One was the war was very controversial, and America wasn't quite getting over the politics.
Why, Ms. Lin, do you think there has been so much frustration?
The memorial, in choosing to be apolitical, was too political for people. The second thing was that it was very unusual in its design. It was black, it was below grade, it listed all the names. And the third thing that I think I was very naive about, at the fact that I was of Asian descent. And I think at the very first press conference, a reporter said, "Do you think it's ironic that this was a memorial to the Vietnam War and you are of Asian heritage?" And I looked him right in the eye and I said, "No, that's irrelevant. My race shouldn't matter." 7 months later, some of the veterans who were building the memorial with me, I finally asked them, they had been protecting me. There were some actually very tough letters that had come in. How dare you let a gook design the memorial?
One needs no artistic education to see this memorial design for what it is, a black scar. Are we Vietnam veterans so blind? Are we so dumb? Will we be out-hustled again? Are we going to take this?
You were 21, you get suffered.
I was protected because the veterans were actually very protective so that I didn't realize that there was some pretty tough racism going on.
Maya Lin, the architect-designer who won the original competition.
Commissioners, the original design gives each individual the freedom to reflect upon the heroism and sacrifice of those who served. It is not a memorial to politics or war or controversy, but to all those men and women who served. It weaves the individual.
So luckily I was able to design the memorial and almost get out of town after groundbreaking and CERN before I really realized how ugly some of the racial issues were at the time. But the minute it was built, it became instantly popular, and all of that faded away. Since it's been up, I think it's the most popular memorial and one of the most popular visited sites in DC. The works that I do tend to be very human in scale, and you react to them very psychologically. Yeah. It's a chronological listing of the name, and you're facing the names, and in a way, symbolically, you see yourself and the names, and then their world, the darker world that you can't enter. So anyone living has to turn around and walk back up into the daylight. So whether you're thinking about the Greek myth of Orpheus in Eurydice, where he can't walk backwards, you have to turn around and walk out. Or there's another poem, it's called Through a Mirror Darkly. Yeah. And again, we're seeing another side reflected, but we cannot attain it. We've deliberately
think about the real relationship between you and
it's a very personal connection, no matter how one could say they're monuments, but I would say they're almost anti-monumental, because they always break down to a very single individual relationship. So it's you with the piece.
Yes.
So I never try to talk to the masses. My text and language is like a book out of doors. You have to read it. At which point we all know when we read a book, it's this very pure psychological connection between what we're saying, what I'm saying, and your mind. And that's the real intimacy of these pieces.
30年前轰动全美的越战纪念碑，关注人的伤痛。
So it was extremely controversial.
今天时代广场和互联网同时发起的环保影像巨作《什么正在消逝》。
The fifth and the last, so it'll take me my lifetime.
他的作品被认为充满了东方式的优雅与沉思。艺文中国继续跨越东西方实地记录著名美籍华裔艺术家林英与中国才女林徽因之间的神秘血缘。
It's your, you're really good at this. How to bring people's really, how to say, care and attention and their...
Right. Yeah. I think part of it is you can shout something out, and a lot of people might turn away because you're being too didactic, or you can whisper it, and people might lean in and say, what did you say? So it's two very different ways of talking or teaching, and again, I would say it's probably a much more Eastern way of teaching. It wasn't until my 30s that I became aware how much in my work there was what you could say an Eastern way of thinking, non-didactic, self-questioning. You present facts like an empty well. You allow the visitor to draw the answers out of that well.
Yeah.
One could argue these are almost Taoist ways of thinking, which would probably be coming from my mother and her way of being. So they never told us what to do. They allowed us to resolve and find our own way.
So your parents moved from mainland China to United States, and when did you first heard about your Chinese heritage?
We're the only Chinese family in Athens, Ohio, and I was brought up, I thought I was like everybody else, and I was in a way in denial of my Asian identity. I didn't know about my past or my parents' past. They will tell you that I never asked. I would say they never offered. I think it is quite common for immigrants who have left everything behind, which is what both of them did. I think my mother came out with $20 and a suitcase full of clothes to go to college, and my dad, similarly, they left in the 47, 48. My education about my family came when I was 21.
When you already designed
I had designed the memorial. I was in Washington, D.C. My dad was visiting, and we were at a Chinese People's Republic, an embassy function, and my dad was talking on and on and on with one of the consuls, and at the end I said, oh, what were you talking about? And so afterwards my dad and I sat down for dinner, and my dad started telling me about my aunt and uncle and my grandfather on his side, and it was the first time I had really heard about my background. Lin Ying, Liang Sushang,
Liang Shicheng, they are so influenced for Chinese
and the fact that they were both trained as architects, brought architecture back to China, and so then I got to know them and I learned more about them. A big influence is that my father, I'm the second born, my brother who's older, my dad really wanted a girl. Very unusual for a Chinese father, wanted a girl because he adored his sister. And he knew that he wanted a girl. And we all think it's a little ironic that she studied architecture.
I so it's like your family have
somehow it's in the blood.
Yes. Last trip I was in New York purposely for visit your museum. Then.
Yeah, it was opening in September, and I've got to say again, favorite pieces I'm so happy to have worked on and designed. You know, building the Museum of Chinese in America was in a way my first real tie-in back, because I realized that I wasn't aware growing up. And for me, it was so important to connect and connect back by helping MoCA out and by sharing the Chinese history, Chinese American history. It's a historic building. It is, it's between Chinatown and Soho, and I deliberately created a building that leaves part of the building old. The center of the whole museum is a chronological history of Chinese in Americas from the 1800s to the present day, and it circles around a courtyard we left deliberately old and raw because it reminded me of a Chinese courtyard house. And in the windows, the open bricked windows, they projected portraits of Chinese Americans. You see the changing face of Chinese American immigration. As you first walk in, there's something I gave them called a journey wall, which people can donate, and it helps to fundraise for the museum, but you can say where you came from in China, where you ended up in the U.S. Because again, everyone thinks we ended up in our coasts. San Francisco Chinatown, New York Chinatown. We went everywhere. Ohio, Wisconsin, Utah. And again, why we came out, what were the opportunities? How did we make our homes there? So again, we're also right now building something called Digital MoCA, because then it isn't just about visiting MoCA, which everyone should do, but it's also about what if you're growing up in the Midwest and you feel isolated? You can will be able to go online and hopefully share your story.
Very recently, you win a very big award, the National
Medal for the Arts.
Yes, and President Obama gave you the award. Congratulations to you for that.
It was a great honor.
You win this because you not only as an artist, also as an architect, also as a conservation.
Right, as a conservationist and also for the memorial. So I think it took an extra, say, 20 years to pursue all three disciplines, the art, the architecture, and the memorials. But now there's enough of a body of work in all three that really makes it clear as to where my path has led me. One of my, you're not supposed to have favorites in art, but of course you always have things that really are where you've pushed it to a place where you then will go off and pursue something else. The Storm King Wave Field is one of my latest pieces that's like that. It's 11 acres. It's 7 rows of water waves, but they roll so high that when you walk through them, they're 18 feet high. You get lost in a wave. We did a complete reclamation of a EPA environmental protection site. Most of my works are these very large outdoor earthworks, but at the same time, I've been paralleling it with these indoor sculptural works that my gallery Pace has shown. So 2x4 landscape, it's made out of sustainably harvested wood, and it just rolls a hill inside, allows you to walk up the top of the hill, touch the ceiling. From the front side, it looks like a cresting water wave. From the back, it looks like a landmass. That, again, took me 8 years to figure out how to build this wooden hill inside. The show traveled Systematic Landscapes to 5 different cities for 3.5 years.
It's like public art.
It is and it isn't. That's private. I did a couple other great large-scale pieces in Systematic Landscapes. One piece was a wire landscape of an ocean terrain called Waterline, and you walked under it. And a third piece that anchored the show was called Blue Lake Pass, and it was a real topography of a mountain range near where we summer in Colorado, and you walk through it. So it gave you 3 very different relationships to the land. One you walk on, one you walk under, one you walk through. Again, getting people to connect back to the natural world. But I've also made simpler shapes, like a piece called Dew Point, which takes a beautiful water drop, as you would throw water on the floor, and the water just pools up. And then I'm in love with water and rivers and exploring in reclaimed silver these silver rivers. I've done one of the Colorado River that is, oh my God, it's 100 feet long. It's in, of all places, Las Vegas at a casino, but it is the Colorado River. So it's all about connecting us to the water that is being used in the city is actually completely altering the Colorado River and its flow. And then for the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, I did a pin river of the Yangtze that is in the embassy as you first walk in. And I'll never forget when I was there visiting, one of the diplomats said, "It looks like a dragon." And I had never seen the Yangtze as a dragon, but now every time I look at that river, I see the estuary is the flame and the two lakes down below is the feet. It's amazing that I had never seen it.
Your art piece always like a minimalism, beautiful, and also with very much poem sense.
My mother's a poet, and she was an English professor, and my brother's a poet.
And
so my mother,
architect and poem.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say the architecture is like writing a novel. The art is absolutely writing a poem.
Yeah, and also your love to the nature.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
completely.
You come by all your love together.
Right, and I think there's a huge scientific component to my artworks.
Yeah.
Where I can research a subject, and I talk to NASA, I talk to Woods Hole, I talk to U.S. Geological Survey. I'm finding information, and I'm using science. So science and data in the actual world and nature and the environment is what you would call the foundation of the artworks, but it's really what do I pull out of that and how do I free myself up. And so some of the wire landscapes I've done, they're drawings. Even though we're using actual topographic lines, we end up translated into hand-drawn lines, and then we hand bend them ourselves. So I think it's this mixture between fact and then you translate it into the intuitive.
Yeah, and also your imagination.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So how you get involved of this kind of
I was born and raised in a small town, a town of 15,000 people surrounded by the woods, and it's southeastern Ohio, so it was a beautiful rolling landscape. And we had all the animals, from raccoons to pileated woodpeckers to wood thrush. We were surrounded by nature. We had a very unusual house. It was like the cottage in the woods. And even though we were in the city, there was just nature and the woodlands all around. So my backyard was nature.
You speak with the animals and the trees more than you speak with the people.
I was pretty... I would spend a lot of my time literally hand taming the birds or the rabbits, which would mean you'd sit in your lawn and wait. And it could take a week, it could take a month, it could take a little longer. I just had an affinity to the animals. I've always been very interested in nature, and it little by little has turned into something that, whether it's the architecture, which is completely sustainable design, or the art where everything I do is getting you to look at nature and rethink our relationship to it, to of course what is missing, which is in a way the culmination of everything, and is very much an advocate piece.
Zaha Hadid, Kinkokoma, MBTV, all those international architecture firms, they come to China, they really work very, like join the fast changing and work together for many projects. However, I saw your work. It's, for me, it's very like snow, very much control yourself. How you feel this?
I think for me, every architecture project I take on must be sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's not just the materials you spec, but the energy you use. I am very committed whenever I take on a project, especially architecturally, to try to bring into it fairly green technologies and green sympathies. It's just something I feel very, very, very committed to.
And also, we see your office here, you have like 6 people work with you.
Yeah.
That means you seriously control the size of your office as well.
I love architecture. I'm very challenged by it, but I am very aware that I would not be able to balance and continue to do the artwork if I took on and became a firm. So I stay extremely small, which is, I think, very unusual. But at the same time, if I take on a project, I'll be working on it very closely with my team. I don't delegate that much. I used to go back and forth. I do more architecture and then I go back to the art. Now I'm just bringing them all up. And they're dialoguing. I mean, I'm learning so much from each, and there's a shared, there's a real voice that's come out, and I think that voice deals with the environment.
2010年2月，美国总统奥巴马在白宫颁赠他美国国家艺术勋章。
Congratulations to you for that.
It was a great honor.
他坦诚可以在全世界为自己的主张奔走呼号，在社交场合却是一个害羞的人。
I'm just a little shy in a social situation. Like, hardest thing for me to do is a cocktail party.
那么，她又是怎样一个让女儿尴尬和骄傲的母亲呢？
No, they're embarrassed of me, of course. Like every child at that age, it's like, mother, don't wear that.
艺文中国邀您继续关注著名美籍华裔艺术家林。
Before I read about you, and like you were a very shy, very alone girl when you're growing up.
Yeah, I was pretty
and
isolated.
now, actually, I think you acted very positively for what you deeply believe and really love.
Well, I think.
So how you change
turn
your character?
I'm just a little shy in a social situation. Like, hardest thing for me to do is a cocktail party. It's easy for me to talk in front of a couple thousand people. I don't know why. I've always been like this. What's really changed me probably is I've gotten married. I have a family. I have 2 girls, and I used to disappear into my work for days on end, and now it's sort of like kid sense when you're preoccupied and they'll come right up to you. So now it's the juggling is crazy now as far as
how are you a good mother? You consider yourself?
I hope I'm a good mom. Sometimes I think it's that whole thing. I work, I come home by dinner time. I try to cook as much as I can. In the summertime, we spend the whole summer away. I generally don't travel. And we're with the family, just the 4 of us, 24/7 for 2 whole months. So I think there's a real commitment from me and my husband to be there for our kids. And we're both in professions. He's an art dealer where we can carve out our time, and we're not owned by a set schedule.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also your fun, so you balance. But it's like when I was a kid. To me, I haven't grown up, and I'm still playing in my bedroom. I'm just making things.
You connect with your family, your Chinese background, Liang Sichen, Lin Ying, and Liang Chongjie, his conservationist.
Yes.
Yes, so all your work, you great on this, and but it connected with, for us, it connected with your family background as well. How about your kids? You think they're still going to continue this?
You know, I'm just like my parents in that no pressures. Whatever they want to do, as long as they study hard, and again, always question what they're doing and make sure that what they're doing is something that they really are passionate about. I think that's really important, to find something you really love. My kids are, half Asian, half Caucasian, and they wanted to surprise their grandmother a few years ago, and they started learning Chinese. They've been to China with me a few times. We actually went and visited the apartments my mother grew up in as a child, which was pretty amazing in Shanghai. And I mean, I think they have always had a connection, and right now, as we've traveled around the world, they've learned about each country's history. So right now, they're actually at home learning about Chinese history. Absolutely.
So your kids, they're proud of you?
Are my kids afraid of me?
No, proud of you.
Oh, are my kids proud of me? No, they're embarrassed of me, of course. Like every child at that age. It's like, mother, don't wear that. If they knew I was wearing this today, they'd be all over me. They're very much worried about how I look. I'm too frumpy for them. I dress too like a slob. So I don't know. They're much more fashionable. But I think they are proud. I think they're aware of the things that I'm doing, and I think sometimes they think their mom's a little crazy. Like, I gave up the plastic bags, the environmental, what we eat. They can't eat a lot of fish anymore. They can't eat this, they can't eat that. But I do believe if you can't even change your own family's behavior, then how can you expect to ask total strangers, right?
Yeah. And China now is really growing, changing, and we as artists, intellectuals, we really try to do something good. And you are doing something amazing and important for bring people's love to the nature, this kind of issues, which very much, meaningful for China as well. How you considering yourself? Are you coming back to China? Going to be?
I think I love the connection. I think coming back to China, I can say coming back as an environmentalist, could I do something?
Yeah, for
in
American,
China,
also in China.
Yeah, what could I do? What could I do to help? China is raising itself up and has a middle class now. You single-handedly, with a lot of the traditional Chinese medicine, you can single-handedly cause to go extinct or to save the tiger, the rhino, the pangolin, the saiga, bears, sea turtles. There are key species that ask, I would just say, and again I'm preaching again, which I normally don't do, but I'm very committed to this. Ask your traditional Chinese medicine doctor, what's the next best substitute? And give up shark fin soup.
Vertebrate is okay, but don't really use the animal, especially.
Yeah. I think people don't realize, and I think I'm not going to say the medicine doesn't work. I'm going to say ask for the next best substitute that does not cause to go extinct these incredible species.
So you are a very positive person. Can I say that?
I am. I'm very concerned. I think we all should be. I think we have pushed the planet to the absolute breaking point. I think it is up to our generation to act. And I think we're running out of time. China could make a huge difference. And right now, as I begin to work in China, from even 5 years ago, you can buy and spec sustainably harvested wood products right now in China. There are sources, and take the effort and seek those out. You can make a huge difference.